Hashem. Today's Daf Yomi is Shevuos Daf Gimel. We're going to start on the bottom of Beis and Beis, 2 lines from the bottom at the where it says Gemara. And so today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for Shmira for the Chayalim Matzah for the Shvuyim and Yeshua for Am Yisrael. We started the Daf Shevuos yesterday, where the Gemara was talking about the idea. The Gemara was talking about the idea of the Mishnah, actually, the whole daf of the Mishnah. It says Shevuos Shtayim Shein Arba, and talked about these different categories of 2 that are 4. That there are 2 oaths that are actually 4. Meaning to say, what does that mean? It's talking about a Shevuos Bitoy, an utterance, and saying, I will eat, I will not eat. And then you end up doing the opposite. That's a violation. And they're also 4 because it refers to it in the past. I did not eat, or I ate. Anyway, the Gemara now asks, as the Gemara usually does at the beginning of the tractate, it asks, what's the relationship between this tractate and the previous tractate? The Gemara says, Michti Tanam in Makos Salk. We just finished studying the Geshmak, the Selta of Makos, Ma'ishna de Tani Shevuos. So why is it talking about, what's the reason why Shevuos comes after Makos? What's the reason? Meaning to say, what's the reason why it's listed here as Shevuos after Makos? So the Gemara says, Mishum Detani, because at the end of Makos, we learned about Chayav Arosh Shtayim, that if you shave off the corners of your head, called your peyos, if you make it round, then you're liable for 2. Achas mikan v'achas mikan, 1 in each direction, 1 on each side. And at the top of Gimel Amid Aleph, Val Zakan Shtayim, and on your beard, you're liable for 2. 2, shtayim mikan v'achas milomata. If you shave off your beard, you do 1 shaving of your beard, you're going to be liable 2 on each side plus 1 in the middle, so 5. So therefore, so it's 1 where you're liable for that 1 action, multiple violations. Tana Shevuos Shtayim Shein Arba. So therefore, we also start with our tractate, which is 2. You take an oath, which can be 2, but can also be 4 from the Torah. It's really not exactly a perfect analogy, but it's still telling us about multiples as a way of remembering. So it's the way they remembered it. Okay, so now, and then Gemara, as part of its beginning, asks another question. Our Mishnah in Shevuos started off on yesterday's daf. Remember, whoever does the daf every day, I'm going to take to Lakewood for a Geshmak meal. Yeah. V'linei there. We'll go to Lakewood. Oh, it'll be beautiful. So it says here, at the beginning of Tractate Shevuos, it says, what? Mike's Chicken, or else Yapchik, or who knows, or Dougie's, I don't know, whatever they are, whatever they have, whatever's the top place in Lakewood. Shevuos Shtayim Shein Arba was the first example. Then it said, Yedios HaTumah, knowledge of Tumah is 2 that are 4. Yitziot HaShabbos Shtayim Shein Arba, that carrying on Shabbos is 2 that are 4. And Maros Negayim are Shnayim Shein Arba. So Tzaras are 2 that are 4. So it lists all these cases. Now the truth is, Shabbos and Negayim have their own tractate. So they're also listed there. But it's only here that it lists all 4 categories. Whereas Shabbos and Negayim, they don't mention the other 3 cases. So Ma'ishna Hacha, that's the Gemara's next question. Ma'ishna Hacha Detani Lulakulu. How come here mentions all 4 times where there's 2 that are 4? Ma'ishna Gabi Yitzio Shabbos Umaros Negayim. And how come by carrying on Shabbos and Saras, there the Mishnayos don't mention it? Just as Yeshua Shtayim Shein Arba, it doesn't say all 4 cases. So this is an introductory page to the Talmud. So Ma'ishna Gabi Yitzio Shabbos Umaros Negayim Delokatani Lulakulu. So the Gemara says, Amri Shevuos v'Yeduos HaTumah. So the Gemara says, okay, we'll tell you how the Mishnah was edited. It started off being written like this. First, it says the case of Shevuos, which are 2 that are 4, and then it says Yedios HaTumah, with the Gabe Adadik Stephen, that they're written next to each other in the Torah. The same paragraph that discusses the Shevuos Bitoy, which is 2 cases that are really 4, also discusses the concept of going into the base of Mikdash, not realizing you're Tameh. So they're written in the same paragraph. And not only that, they're both Vidamina Adadi B'Karbon Olav Yored. And they're also, have a great day, Benji. They're also similar to each other in that they both bring the carbon of Yored. Do you know what the carbon of Yored is? Who knows what it is? Anybody know what the carbon of Yored is? That's the carbon where if you're wealthy, you bring a sheep. If you're poor, you bring a bird. And if you're the poorest of the poor, Dal Shabbatam, you bring in a grain offering. So it applies to both the Yedios Satuma and also to Shevuos. So therefore, they write it next to each other. So Tani Ugabi Adadi. So and Yedios Satuma doesn't have its own tractate. Yetzios Shabbos and Negayim, they both have their own tractate. It's called Shabbos and called Negayim. But so therefore, Shevuos and Yedios Satuma are written next to each other. I did Tani Tarti, Tani Kul. And so once you're writing two, you might as well write all four. So then the next question that the Mishnah asks. The Gemara starts, the Mishnah starts by talking about Shevuos, and then it goes on a tangent, and actually we're going to go on this tangent for the next 19 pages, Mefarish Yedios Satuma, and it explains all the cases where you come into the temple not having known that you were Tameh. So why does it start with Shevuos? It says we're about to start Masechah Shevuos, and then for the first 19 days, all we talk about is Yedios Satuma. Why does it go on such a tangent? So the Gemara explains, I did to do Sarin Milayu. So the Gemara explains, I did to do Tarin Milayu Pasek Sharlo. Other Tani Shevuos to Nefisha Milayu. So it says since Yedios Satuma is shorter, is fewer cases relating to it, there are much less laws about it. So therefore, we did that first. And once that's done, we're going to talk about Shevuos, which has many more laws. So now, these are all introductory phrases to the tractates. And then the next thing is Shevuos Shtayim Shein Arba. What does it mean when it says in our Mishnah there are two oaths that are four? It means there are two that are explicitly written in the Torah that actually we can infer from it that it's actually a total of four. This is what's called the Shevuos Bitoy, an oath and utterance. Meaning to say, it's not an oath that somebody makes you swear because you owe them money. And it's not an oath that was said in vain. You're taking an oath, like, for example, I take an oath that I will run a marathon. So that's a Shevuos Bitoy. It's an oath that you will run. I'm saying somebody says it. Or I will never run a marathon. So what does it mean? Shevuos Shtayim Shein Arba. Shtayim she'ochel v'shelo ochel. Shein Arba, so it's two. One is that I will eat, that I will not eat. Shein Arba, which is four, she'achalti v'shelo ochalti, that I ate and I did not eat. Okay, what are Yedios Satuma Shtayim Shein Arba? What are the Yedios Satuma? The knowledge of Tuma that are two, that are actually four. Yedios Tuma is Kodesh. The Yedios Tuma Mikdash. So, for example, what is it? Yedios Tuma. I know that I was Tameh and I still ate the sacred food. And I know that I was Tameh. I knew that I was Tameh and I forgot. And I entered into the Beis HaMikdash. Shein Arba, which is four. What is that? Kodesh Mikdash. I didn't realize that this was the Beis HaMikdash. And so therefore I wasn't allowed to go in because I'm Tameh. And I didn't realize that this was a sacred piece of food that I couldn't eat in the state of ritual Tumah. Yitzios Shabbos Shtayim Shein Arba. What is the Yitzios Shabbos that are two, that are four? So Shtayim Hotza the Ani Votza the Balabayas. Shein Arba Achnasa the Ani Vachnasa the Balabayas. Okay, let me explain this. So the way you're not on Shabbos, what's the biblical prohibition of carrying from where? From one domain, from a private domain into a public domain. That's what's explicit in the Torah, because it talks about, Moshe says to the people, don't bring it from your homes to bring to the Mishkan anymore. So the Gemara in Shabbos understands that the paradigm is a poor man who's standing outside waiting for something to be given to him by the Balabayas, the owner of the house, who's inside. So the two cases are, one is standing in his house and the other one is standing outside, and the poor man reaches into the inside and takes it out, or the rich man takes it from his house and gives it to the poor man. That's where you take it from the private domain to the public domain. And also, since we know that that's explicit, so the other way is also implied, which is taking it from the public domain into the private domain. So that's as it relates to Yitzios of Shabbos Shtayim Shein Arba. Hotza da'ani, Mitzad the Balabais, which is 4, Achnasa Dani Machnasa the Balabais. What are Maros Negayim? The leprosy, Shnayim, Shehain, Arba, 2 that are 4. Shnayim are Se'etu Baharis. We read this in yesterday's parasha. These are 2 forms of 2 appearances of the tzaras. Shein Arba, Se'es v'Tolosah, Baharis v'Tolosah. They each have slightly different variations of the coloring scheme. So now the Gemara asks another question. Mani Masnisin, who is our Mishnah like? Our Mishnah is not Rabbi Yishmael, not Rabbi Akiva. We'll see what this refers to. Rabbi Yishmael says, Ha'omer Eino Chayev Ella Ala Asid Lavo. Meaning to say, Rabbi Yishmael's on the position, you're actually not liable for taking an oath. He says you're only chayev, according to Rabbi Yishmael. He's going to say you're only going to be liable for a carbon of the yared on the future. Meaning to say you're not going to be liable for the past. So Rabbi Yishmael does not have this case of 2 that are 4 because he only has the sacrifice for 2. So our Mishnah cannot be Rabbi Yishmael and it can't be Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Akiva ha'amar al helam tumahu chayev ve'eno chayev ha'elam mikdash. Meaning to say, Rabbi Akiva is on the position, also not like our Mishnah, because he says you're only liable if you forgot that it's Tameh, but not if you forgot that this is the Beis HaMikdash. So he also only has 2, he doesn't have 4. So who is our Mishnah like? So says the Gemara, Ibai Yisema Rabbi Yishmael, Ibai Yisema Rabbi Akiva. If you want, you could say our Mishnah is Rabbi Yishmael. If you want, you could say it's Rabbi Akiva. Ibai Yisema Rabbi Yishmael. He says that you read our Mishnah, it says 2 that are 4, but you have to add in another line. Some of them you have to bring a carbon, half of them, and the other half, the ones in the past, you don't bring a sacrifice. He says the same thing. For some of them, you're tamei, i.e., if you forgot that you're tamei, but you don't bring a tamei if you forgot that you don't bring a carbon if you forgot that it's the Beis HaMikdash. Gemara rejects that. It can't be that half of them are on top of Gimel Mabez. It can't be that some of these 4 are exempt, some are liable and some are exempt. It can't be because the next category is similar, is about Maros Negayim, about leprosy. And by Tzaras, by Maros Negayim, Ma'asam Kul Chiyuv. Just like by Tzaras, all the 4 appearances, whether it's the Seis or the Baharis or it's Toldos, you're all going to be liable and say it's Tzaras. All of them have to be to make you liable to bring a carbon. So it can't be that 2 of them are to say you're obligated and 2 are to say you're exempt. So what is it? So the Gemara says, Olam. We're on 3b, 3 lines from the top. Olam Rabbi Yishmael. We had a problem with Rabbi Yishmael. What was the problem? We said Rabbi Yishmael says you're not liable for the carbon about if you took an oath that was false about the past. Rabbi Yishmael carbon. So when Rabbi Yishmael says you're not liable about an oath that you took in the past that you were wrong about, he doesn't obligate you to bring a sacrifice, but he does say you get lashes. Rava, like Rava. I'm a Rava, but Pharaoh Rip the Torah, Shevuos Sheker, Dumyan de Shevuos Shav, that the Torah explicitly compared this false oath about to a oath that was said in vain, because it says in the verse in Exodus, in Parashas Yisro, "Sisa Hashem Hashem al Kechol Hashav," in Aseres Hadibros, it says, "You now take God's name in vain." Ma'ashav l'sha'avar, just like that a Shevuos Shav is about the past, meaning to say, you say, I want to change something that everybody knows is true. Av sheker nami l'shavar. So too, false. This false oath is about the past, and so therefore you're liable for lashes. So the Gemara says, wait 1 second. Bishlama achalti v'lo achalti kiderava. Okay, I understand that if you swore a false oath about the past, you said I ate and you didn't eat, or you said I didn't eat when you in fact ate. I understand it's like Rava that you're going to get lashes. And so too, Sho Ochal Va'achal, Nami, and also if you say I will not eat and you ate, I understand why you'll get lashes. Lav Shieshbo Maisahu. So I understand you said I ate and I didn't eat. We're going to give you lashes because like a Shevuos Shav. And if you said I ate, that I will not eat it, and you eat, also get lashes. It's an action. Ela ochel v'lo achal. But let's say you say I will eat, and you don't end up eating. Why would you get lashes according to Rava? You say I'm going to eat. I take an oath that I will eat, and you never eat. Why does Rava say you get lashes? It's a prohibition without an action. So why would you get lashes? So the Gemara says because Sava Rabbi Shmuel Lav Shem B'Ma'aseh Lo K'Nolam. So this takes us back to Malchus. Rabbi Shmuel says even though there's no action, you're going to get lashes for this prohibition. Gemara says if that's what our Mishnah is talking about with the obligation to get lashes, like Rabbi Shmuel, who says that in the past you don't get a carbon, but you get lashes, and even though there's a prohibition without an action, you get lashes. Kashya, the Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi Yochanan. We have another problem because Rabbi Yochanan is contradicting himself. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, it's really a question on Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Halacha Kastam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan says there's a general principle that the law is like an anonymous Mishnah. Meaning, say when Rabbi codified all the Mishnayos, if he recorded a Mishnah in an anonymous manner, it means the law is like that. And if that's the case, that means the law should be like this Mishnah that you get lashes even for this prohibition when there's not an action. But we have a difficulty because it says Shevuos she'ochel kikor zeh hayom, v'avar hayom lo achol. You say I take an oath that I'm going to eat it, this loaf of bread today. It's Goldberg's Bagels, and you don't eat it. And so according to our Mishnah, you should get lashes, even though it's prohibition without an action. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish to Amar Travayu Eino Lokeh. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't get lashes. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Eino Lokeh Mishum Davi Lav Shemo Ma'aseh says it's prohibition without an action. You don't get lashes. Any prohibition without an action, you don't get lashes for. Reish Lakish Amar Eino Lokeh because that's Ra's Safek. This takes us back exactly to Malchus. Reish Lakish says you don't get lashes because when you warned him, we weren't. It wasn't. It was a warning that was ambiguous. Straw Safek Lishma Straw. So you can't warn unless it's certain. But anyway, right now we see this contradiction because Rabbi Yochanan says the law is like an anonymous Mishnah, and we had explained that our Mishnah, which is an anonymous Mishnah, is referring to the case where you get lashes, even though it's a for an oath where you say I'm going to eat this, even though you don't eat it because it's a prohibition, even though it has no action. Rabbi Yochanan says you get lashes, but now we have this other teaching where Rabbi Yochanan says that if you say I'll eat this loaf of bread today and you don't eat it, you don't get lashes. So it's a contradiction, and Rabbi Yochanan says it's because it's a prohibition without an action. So how come Rabbi Yochanan rules that way? So the Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan stamach rina ashkach. Rabbi Yochanan said I found a different anonymous Mishnah which says that a prohibition without an action you don't get lashes. Hi stama, where is this anonymous Mishnah that he found? So the Gemara is going to search for it. Ilema hi stama. Maybe it's the following anonymous Mishnah. Remember, I said this is just basically an introduction to the tractate. I imagine like a Rosh Hashiva coming in and giving a lecture about, let me tell you about Shevuos. So he says, I found the Mishnah in the beginning of Pesachim. What does the Mishnah there say? The Tanan. But we also have this Mishnah at the end of Makos. Achal avo amosir b'tahor. Let's say somebody left over the Korban Pesach till the morning. V'ashover b'tamei, or he broke the bones of the Korban Pesach that was tamei. Eino lokas arbaim. He's not going to get the lashes. Why? Why did he not get the lashes? Bishlam hashover b'tamei. I understand why if he broke the bones of the Korban Pesach, which was tamei, at some lotich berbo. I understand why he doesn't get the lashes because that only applies if it was a tar animal, but the kosher of a puzzle. But so it's only if it will be kosher for the Korban Pesach, not if it's disqualified. Aval, but Amosir Batar, my timer. What's the reason if you leave over the Korban Pesach to the morning, you don't get lashes? Rav Mishum, David Rav Shemomais. It must be the Rabbi Yochanan's other position. It's a prohibition without an action. So Rabbi Yochanan found that Mishnah in Makos and Psachim, which says you don't get lashes for Rav Shemomais. So therefore, he's ruling like that Mishnah and not like our Mishnah here. Umimai the Rebbe. So the Gemara says, Umimai the Rebbe Yaakovi. And how do we know that our Mishnah in Makos and Psachim, like Rabbi Yaakov, Damar Rav Shem Ma'aseh Ein Loken Olav? How do you know it's like that? Like Rabbi Yaakov, who says you don't get lashes. Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe it's like the position of Rabbi Yehuda who argues, and he says, "Mishum daba daba kosavli tein say acharos say." That what's the reason you don't get lashes in Makos and Sachem? This is what we talked about at the end of Makos. It's what's called a lav anita klase. Wherever a prohibition, wherever a positive commandment comes to fix the prohibition, you don't get lashes for it. But we're not for that case. You will get lashes. The Tanya goes, as we learned in the bride, so goes to Sir Mimenu Aboker, but no to Mimenu Aboker, but Aish just Rofu. Maybe the reason why you get lashes is not because it's a lav sheim bo ma'aseh, but because it's what's called a lav anita koseh. The prohibition fixes the positive commandment. That's the position of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yaakov Omar Roman Hashem was el mishum davi lav sheim bo ma'aseh. So that can't be for sure the anonymous Mishnah that Rabbi Yochanan found, because he wouldn't have relied upon that to overturn our anonymous Mishnah and say that a lav shein bo ma'aseh you don't get lashes. But because maybe that Mishnah is like Rabbi Yehuda who says the reason why you don't get lashes is because it's a lav anita klasei, and not like Rabbi Yaakov who says it's a lav shein bo ma'aseh. Ella hai stama ashkach. So it's a different anonymous Mishnah. One second, let me just finish this. And we had a question, sure. No, please.
The example, I'm kind of lost place, but the example I thought is you're going to do something and then
you don't do it.
So that's a verbal affirmation of the law.
Correct.
But then the way we fix them, you're saying there is a positive.
No, that one does not have a positive. That's not a lav anita klasei. The lav anita klasei, where the positive commandment fixes the prohibition, that's only the korban pesach, where you said you're not allowed to leave it over till the morning. But if you do leave it over, you burn it. So
I'm doing something. I'm going to do something, and then I don't do it. How is that?
So that doesn't get fixed. That's why they're arguing that one position is you would get lashes there, even though it's a prohibition without an action. So the Gemara says, "Ella haistama ashkach." So Rabbi Yochanan must have found it different, and even though our Mishnah says, according to Rabbi Shmuel, we're saying that our Mishnah is that prohibition without an action you get lashes. Rabbi Yochanan is not ruling like it because he found a different Mishnah. Which Mishnah? Shevuos shelo ochel kikarzu. This is the Mishnah from Shevuos Shtayim Basra, from the second Shevuos Shtayim, where it says, he says, an oath that I will not eat this loaf of bread. Shevuos shelo ochena. And he says, an oath that I will not eat this loaf of bread. And then he says, an oath that I won't eat it. V'achla, and he then comes along and eats it. Eino chayav ela achas. He's only going to be liable for one set of lashes. Because once he took the first oath, then it was prohibited. And when he took the second oath, he was just taking an oath to fulfill a mitzvah. And we learned nishbal kaimas a mitzvah loki and pater mishulas karba. So you know what? We're on the next stop, so we'll stop here. God willing, we'll pick this up, God willing, tonight and tomorrow morning. Baruch Hashem.